Every morning, just after the sun begins peeking through my kitchen window, I stand up from my favorite old chair, and every single morning I quietly whisper, "Thank you." Not because I'm 104 years old, but because I can still stand up without that sharp knee pain I used to expect. A few years ago, that wasn't my story. My name is Grace. I'm 104 years old. I still water my little flower garden. I still bake apple bread for my grandchildren. And if the weather is kind, I still enjoy taking a slow walk down the path behind my house before breakfast. Those simple moments mean more to me now than they ever did when I was young. But there was a time when even standing up from a chair felt like climbing a mountain. I'd place both hands on the armrests, rock forward, take a deep breath, and brace myself for that familiar ache in my knees. Some mornings, the first few steps were the hardest. I'd shuffle slowly through the kitchen until everything seemed to loosen up. Like many people, I told myself, "Well, Grace, you're over 100. What do you expect?" My granddaughter didn't like hearing me say that. One morning she gently took my hand and said, "Grandma, just because something is common doesn't mean you have to ignore it." Those words stayed with me, so I finally mentioned my knees to my doctor instead of simply accepting the pain as part of getting older. After examining me, he smiled kindly and said something I'll never forget. "Grace, I'm not going to promise you 20-year-old knees, but I do think we can help them feel a little happier." I liked that. Not perfect, just happier. Then he surprised me. I expected him to recommend expensive gadgets or difficult exercises. Instead, he said, "The first hour after you wake up can shape how your knees feel for the rest of the day." That sentence changed my mornings. Not overnight, one gentle habit at a time. Over the next several months, I created a simple morning routine. No fancy equipment, no painful workouts. Just a few kind things I began doing for the body that has faithfully carried me through 104 beautiful years. Little by little, getting out of my chair became easier. Walking through my garden felt lighter. And those stiff first steps that used to greet me every morning became fewer and fewer. Now, before I share my routine, I want to tell you something important. Knee pain can have many causes. Arthritis, injuries, inflammation, and other medical conditions all deserve proper care. What helped me may not be exactly what your body needs. Please work with your healthcare provider or physical therapist if your pain is severe or getting worse. I'm simply sharing the gentle morning routine that helped this old grandmother start each day with a little more comfort and a lot more gratitude. So, pour yourself a warm cup of tea, sit with me for a few minutes, and let me show you the little morning habits that made the biggest difference in my knees. The very first thing I do each morning actually happens before I even stand up. Now, I know that may sound a little unusual, but years ago, I'd wake up, swing my legs over the side of the bed, and jump right to my feet, or at least I'd try to. My knees would immediately remind me that they weren't nearly as eager as the rest of me. I'd wince, take a sharp breath, and stand there for a few moments until everything settled down. I thought that was simply how mornings were supposed to feel. Well, during one of my appointments, I mentioned this to my doctor. He smiled kindly and asked, "Grace, do you expect a cold car engine to run smoothly the second you turn the key?" I laughed. "Of course not." He nodded. "Your joints are much the same." After a night's rest, they often appreciate a few gentle moments before you ask them to carry your whole body. That made perfect sense. So the very next morning, I did something different. Instead of rushing to stand, I stayed sitting on the edge of my bed for a minute or two. I gently rolled my ankles, slowly bent and straightened each knee. Then I lifted one foot at a time, just a few inches off the floor. Nothing difficult, nothing painful. Just enough to remind my legs that a new day had begun. Sometimes I'd even place my hands over my knees and give them a little rub. Not because I believed my hands had magical powers, but because warmth and gentle movement simply felt comforting. Those quiet moments became one of my favorite parts of the morning. Instead of feeling frustrated that my body wasn't 20 years old, I started thanking it for carrying me through 104 beautiful years. That's a very different way to begin the day. Then, before taking my first real step, I'd stand beside the bed and hold onto the dresser for balance. I'd slowly shift my weight from one foot to the other, back and forth, nice and easy, just enough to wake up the muscles that help support my knees. My doctor explained that strong muscles around the knees help take some of the pressure off the joints. You don't have to perform an intense workout. Sometimes a few gentle movements are enough to prepare your body for the day ahead. I noticed something after a couple of weeks. Those first painful steps didn't disappear overnight, but they weren't nearly as sharp. Instead of feeling stiff for 20 minutes, I was loosening up much sooner. That little change gave me hope. And hope is a wonderful thing, because once you start believing your body can feel a little better, you're much more willing to keep taking care of it. I've learned don't always ask for dramatic changes. More often, they ask for patience, a little kindness, a little movement, and a little understanding. Growing older has taught me that rushing rarely helps anything. Not bread rising, not flowers blooming, and certainly not sleepy old knees. But the second part of my morning routine made an even bigger difference. And surprisingly, it wasn't an exercise at all. It started in my kitchen, with the very first thing I chose to put into my body. The second part of my morning routine begins in my kitchen. Not with medicine, not with a special powder, just with a simple glass of water. Now, I know that doesn't sound very exciting. When people ask me, "Grace, what's the secret to your knees?" they're usually expecting me to mention some miracle supplement. Instead, I hand them a glass of water. For years, I'd wake up, make my coffee, and that would be the first thing I drank. Sometimes I wouldn't have a glass of water until lunchtime. I never really thought about it. Then my doctor asked me, "Grace, how much water do you drink before your first cup of coffee?" I smiled sheepishly. "Usually none." He nodded kindly. "After a night's sleep, your body has gone several hours without any fluids. Starting the day well hydrated helps your whole body function better." That made sense to me. After all, you wouldn't expect your garden to look its best if you never watered it. So now, before I make my coffee, before I check on my flowers, before I do anything else, I slowly drink a full glass of water. Not all at once, just nice and easy. It's become such a natural habit that if I forget, my body almost reminds me. Then comes breakfast. Years ago, I'd often skip it, or I'd grab something sweet because it was quick. A pastry, a couple of cookies with my coffee. Yes, even grandmothers make those kinds of choices sometimes. But those breakfasts never seemed to keep me feeling strong for very long. By mid-morning, I'd feel sluggish. and somehow everything seemed harder, even walking around the house. These days, breakfast is much simpler. Most mornings I'll have a bowl of oatmeal with berries, sometimes an egg with whole grain toast, or plain yogurt with a little fruit and a handful of walnuts. Nothing fancy, just foods that leave me feeling steady instead of sluggish. My doctor explained that maintaining a healthy weight can reduce stress on the knees, and eating a balanced breakfast helps me make better choices throughout the day. That wasn't about dieting, it was about giving my body the fuel it needed. Another little habit has become part of my mornings too. Before I sit down for a long chat or settle into my favorite chair with a book, I take a short walk, just 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes it's only around my backyard. Sometimes it's up and down the driveway. If the weather isn't kind, I simply walk slowly through the house. Movement has a funny way of helping movement. The more gently I use my knees, the happier they seem to become. Of course, I listen carefully to my body. If something hurts, I don't push through it. There's a difference between gentle stiffness and pain that's asking for attention. I've learned to respect that difference. Looking back, none of these habits are impressive on their own. A glass of water, a nourishing breakfast, a short morning walk. They seem almost too ordinary. But ordinary habits, repeated over many mornings, can quietly create extraordinary changes. And after 104 years, I think that's one of the greatest lessons life has taught me. The little things we do consistently often matter much more than the big things we do once. Now, before we say goodbye, there's one last lesson my knees have taught me. And truthfully, it has very little to do with my knees at all. You know, when people hear that I'm 104 years old, and I can still get up in the morning without dreading those first few steps, they usually ask, "Grace, what's your secret?" I always smile, because they're expecting me to name a miracle exercise or an expensive supplement. Instead, I tell them it's a handful of very ordinary habits, the kind that almost seem too simple to matter. And perhaps that's exactly why they work. Looking back, my knees didn't become happier because of one big decision. They became happier because I stopped ignoring them. I stopped jumping out of bed. I gave them a few gentle moments to wake up. I started every morning with water instead of only coffee. I chose breakfasts that left me feeling strong instead of sluggish. I moved a little every day instead of waiting until my body became stiff. Those little choices didn't change my age. They changed how I greeted each new day. One of my grandchildren once asked me, "Grandma, what's it like being 104? I thought about that for a moment, then I smiled. It's a lot like tending an old garden. You don't expect every flower to look exactly the way it did 20 years ago. Some blossoms become smaller, some branches become a little slower to bloom. But if you keep watering the garden, pulling the weeds, and giving it gentle care, it still fills your heart with beauty." Our bodies are much the same. Growing older isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming patient. Patient with healing. Patient with progress. Patient with ourselves. I've stopped wishing for younger knees. Instead, I'm thankful for the knees that still carry me to my garden, still help me hug my grandchildren, still let me stand at the kitchen counter and bake fresh bread for the people I love. Those ordinary moments are extraordinary gifts. Now, I also want to remind you of something important. Not every knee problem can be solved with a morning routine. If your knee pain is severe, If it suddenly becomes swollen or unstable, or if it's keeping you from living your daily life, please don't simply hope it goes away. Talk with your doctor or a physical therapist. Sometimes getting help early is one of the kindest things you can do for yourself. There's wisdom in listening to your body. If there's one lesson I've learned after 104 beautiful years, it's this: your body is always listening to the way you treat it. Not just once, every single day. A kind morning often leads to a kinder afternoon, and kind days have a wonderful way of becoming healthy years. So tomorrow morning, before you rush into your day, pause for just a moment. Stretch your legs gently. Drink a glass of water. Eat something that truly nourishes you. Take a slow walk if your healthcare provider says it's safe. And remember, you don't have to do everything perfectly. You simply have to keep showing up for yourself, little by little, day by day. Before I go, I'd love to hear from you. How young are you today? And where are you watching from? I always enjoy reading your messages. They remind me that no matter how many birthdays we've celebrated, we're all hoping for the same simple blessings. A body that lets us enjoy another sunrise, another walk through the garden, another warm hug, and another beautiful day with the people we love. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Take gentle care of those knees. Take gentle care of yourself. And never underestimate the power of one small morning habit, repeated with love.